from now on, we'll come over to another great MG, which is, I think, far more streamlined aerodynamically. And in it we have, how are you?
Hello, Frank yourself.
Frank, good to see you here today. Frank, give us a bit of a rundown on your car. See, you put it all out nicely here with Pirellis. No, Michelin's, aren't they?
No, they're Pirellis.
Pirellis.
We rather hope that they work well in the wet. But the car was built in 1949. It came out from England as a rolling chassis. And a chap up in Sydney fitted this single-seater body to it. It was lost for about 20 years. And we rebuilt it over the last 2 or 3 years.
That's very good. And with those Pirellis, they ought to be very good in the wet.
Yes, I'm really happy.
Let's hope for you.
Yes, thanks very much.
All the best.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. From here on, we go right back to one sitting on the grid over here. A fabulous machine. Peter, how are you? You've got a very wet drive here. Give us a rundown on your car.
It's a 1958 Stanguellini, built in Italy for Formula Junior races. Basically Fiat 1100 actually. This car was bought in America some 2 years ago and has been just restored, and this is about its third outing. Good little motor car though.
Yeah, when you're sitting on this grid, we hope you have a good run. You're sitting back, what, about 4th or 5th car? I think just keep it going. There's a lot being spinning out, so do your best. Thank you very much.
Right, let's have a look at some of the other cars on the grid there now, and something about them from John Cummings with Paul Harrington.
Well, car 148 there, John, is John Medley. You know a bit about John Medley, I guess.
I certainly would. This is a Nota Formula Junior. The Nota factory probably built more racing cars than anybody else in Australia. Very prolific builder of little specials. This belonged to the Howard brothers. Very famous people, of course, with fireworks. They put on all the fireworks displays in Australia. The car at one stage had a supercharged Ford 10 in it after it stopped being a Formula Junior. And, sorry, a Ford 105. And it's now got its original B&C motor back and a very hard charger, John Medley indeed.
Well, the car behind that, of course, is another of the stalwarts, John Blandon's car, a Lotus 18, that's car 62, being driven today by Rob Butcher.
Yes, and another car that does extremely well in historic racing. It always goes very, very hard. Likewise, the car beside it, the Nedlow, which is Holden spelt backwards, and David Lowe driving it. Beside him is Lou Molina, the laughing restaurateur.
Yeah, a great favourite in the historic register circles, and a very great driver in his own right, who can get round Calder in that car quicker than many of the current racing cars.
Ken Messenger in the late Eldred Norman supercharged Zephyr. This car has no chassis. It has a tubular backbone which has the drive shaft through it. It's run 6 stub exhausts with a Zephyr engine lying on its side, a Holden front suspension bolted to the timing case, a big 2-inch SU which you can see hanging out the side of the car, and it has a Matador gearbox behind the driver. And I think Eldred Norman called it the Nor 4 Holdrador. And Barney Dentry will be starting this race. There he is, 78 years old, very, very sprightly indeed, looking at the grid, 10 seconds to go. Critical eye on the whole field as Barney is getting ready to drop it. The Stanguellini's balling for.
Oh, I hope he makes it.
This, of course, being a handicap event, they got to be started individually.
And that's Bob Phillips in the supercharged Cooper Vincent there out front, followed by Al Reed in the monoskate.
And look at Graham Snape in the ex-gymnast and record-breaking supercharged Cooper. And you can probably hear that as it he missed a gear change. He's been having a bit of trouble with gear change in practice, but he's well away now. And a TD, very unusual. Not many TD specials were ever built. Paul, that bright yellow motor car, making its way, car 167, round the back section of the circuit.
That's Alan Morton's car.
And Malcolm Reed, son of Ron Reed, very famous driver Ron Reed, of course, and we'll see him later in the Solomon Singer. The Masling Humber, which was specially dropped on the wharf when it was brand new, and the saloon body wasn't much good after they dropped it off the wharf. Always been a racing car for its whole life, the Mac Healy, car 10, another very famous car, John Fitzpatrick in the Lola Formula Junior. And there goes the Zephyr. Roars past our broadcast point here, and it's got an ear-piercing scream as it makes its way round to the bottom section of the circuit.
The one noticeable factor about these historic cars is the noise. They're far noisier than today's cars, aren't they, John? Why is this?
Oh, it's the sight, the sound and the smell.
You know, I can't see any reason why it should be that way, but it certainly is, isn't it?
Ben Sellers in the Nota Major. He's another bloke that drives very, very hard indeed and is always having dices with John Betty. That's powered by a 1500 BMC car. And away goes Lou Molina there, Rob Butcher and Lowe in the Ned Lowe, or Neddy Lowe as he's commonly called.
These are the fastest cars in the race, starting from the back of the grid in this handicap event. Now, being a handicap, they are in the positions on the road, the positions of the race. The handicap was, as you saw, given at the start, so there's no computation needed. So we have here Frank Cuttle in the MGTC Special, leading the event on the road.
And this is Frank's very first drive, and round he went, right round he went. He's off the road, but he's still running, and he'll be back on again. And he's moving around back onto the circuit again. That's bad luck for him, but still, that's part of motor racing.
So the lead now is in the hands of Bob Phillips in the Cooper Vincent. Meanwhile, back down the field, here we have two of the cars heading out of Repco and down into Goodrich Corner, tippy-toeing their way along. Here's our leader,
Rob Phillips. They've taken the supercharger off the car. They did have a few problems when it was supercharged. It's running still on the low compression piston, so it probably hasn't got quite as much squirt as it should have.
Probably is rather glad of that today, I'd say.
I think he'd be very pleased that. Frank Cattell now has regained his composure and aplomb. Now, car 91.
There's Barry Jupp's MGTC. MG is, of course, very popular in the immediate post-war racing years here in Australia. Here's our leader in second place car.
And it looks as though Frank Cattell is doing something about trying to get back into the lead again. He's going to run up the exhaust pipe with the little pocket-to-pocketer Vincent as he slips around the back section of the circuit there and is catching a tremendous amount of spray forward. You can really see the sort of spume coming up off the tyres, and Frank Cattell slipping and sliding and zigging and zagging all over the road as he tries to battle with his TC, and he's going for a passing move on the outside, right round the outside of Robbie Phillips he goes, and he's really giving it plenty on the back section of the circuit.
Those Pirellis seem to be working quite well in on that car. He's back in the lead, ahead of Phillips. And the third place car's come into the picture now, which is Rod Robertson.
Oh, very hard driving Rod Robertson, as we said earlier.